Hey guys, it's Bryony. So I've tried to film this video several times already today and it's just not working out, so hopefully this one works. I've got you balanced rather precariously today on my bed on like a lap tray and then the tripod, then the camera, so if it's a little bit wobbly, please forgive me. But I've also got a cold as well. But today's video is going to be on how things changed for me after I got my first period. So not just like physical changes, but emotional, mental, all that kind of stuff. Just how I felt, you know, as a human being after getting it. So I'm going to get straight into it and try and get through this as quickly as possible. I was 14 when I had my first period, and that is actually, sorry if you can hear squeaking in the background, the little baby Jack who's staying with me, he's developed the ability to screech. So yeah, I was 14, which actually isn't too old, but it's also not very young. By modern standards, it's normal to get your period any time between the ages of 8 and 18, but at 14 I felt like I was the last one in my class to get it, so I was very, very happy when I got my period, because I've been waiting for it. I felt like it was never going to come, and then it happened, and I was like, oh my goodness, I am a woman now. That was my initial, wobbling a bit. That was my initial thought. Like, I just felt, yes, you know, this is my initiation into womanhood. It's happened. And I was really happy about it. And actually, I've never really hated my period even since then, even though it's been very painful from times and caused me all sorts of problems. I've never hated it because I just accept it as part of being a woman, to me, in my mind. But one thing that really changed when I got my period is something that I don't think many people will be able to connect with, but who knows, I'll share it anyway. So I'm an only child. I don't have any brothers or sisters, and I never have. And when I was growing up, I loved children, and I was desperate for a sibling. But unfortunately, my dad had a heart attack when I was 3, and he survived, and that was fine. But my mother was the one that went out to work, and my dad was the one that stayed home and looked after me. And he didn't feel that he could look after another child after that had happened. So it was just me after that. But growing up, I didn't really understand this when I was younger. But growing up, I became aware that all my friends, most of my friends, had a sibling of some kind, and I really, really wanted that as well. I wanted like somebody else to be there, to go on holidays with, to play with, and I was quite lonely as well because I had a lot of friends, but none I was very, very, very close to, or then vice versa. I had a couple who I was very close to, but not a huge group of friends, so if they were busy, there was no one else for me to play with. So I got very good at playing on my own. Please excuse my nose, it's very itchy. So I spent a lot of my childhood like begging my parents to have another baby, or to adopt, or to foster, like anything, just have another child in the house. I was very keen for that, but they were not up for that. And then when I was 14 and I got my period, I suddenly realised, hey, if I really love children and I love being around them, I could just have a baby. Like, I got my period, I was like, oh my goodness, I could have the child now. And suddenly it became less important having a sibling, because suddenly I couldn't have a sibling, but I could have a child, you know. And I mean, I wasn't seriously thinking about getting pregnant at that point. I did have a boyfriend, but we weren't to that. I wasn't thinking that way at 14. But it wasn't a serious decision. I thought, oh, I could have a child. But it was something I was aware of in my mind of, I've got my period now. Like, my ovaries are producing eggs each month. Like, my uterus is filling up with blood. I could get pregnant. And that was a huge thing for me, and I loved the idea of that. That was something that made me personally so, so happy. And I felt, as I said before, I felt like a woman. I felt like I'd become a woman, and that was something I could do. But it's very interesting because now, skip forwards about 5 years, I'm 19, I'm actually at a point where I genuinely could have a baby. I have a 2-bedroom flat that I own, I have a decent car, you know, I have a stable monthly income, don't have a man or a husband or a partner or anything actually, but in this day and age, don't even need that to have children, you know. But now that I'm at that point where it genuinely is a possibility of something I could do, I'm not as bothered. It's less of an issue. I'm not actually rushing to go into it, which is very intriguing. So obviously when I was 14 and it was an idea of I could have a child, I'm not going to now, but I could. That changed my mindset to being a lot more positive and not worrying so much about, you know, having a sibling or anything, because I could have a child if I really, really wanted to. And now I'm at the point where I genuinely, like, it actually could be a possibility, because obviously when I was 14 I was still living at home, didn't have a job or anything, and that's changed. It's less important to me now. I just like knowing that I could do that when I'm ready, and I'm not quite ready just yet to have my own children. I would like to meet someone before then. But that was the biggest change I think that I experienced after getting my period. So that was sort of emotional and mental for me. It made me so much happier. And as I said before, I think it's weird because I've been through so many problems. Please excuse baby Jack, he's squeaking. I've been through so many problems with my periods, like painful periods, you know, all sorts of things that held me back on, and that is the negative side to it. I still don't mind getting my period, but when it's painful, it can take a big toll, because sometimes people don't understand just how painful a period can get when you really are in agony and you're throwing up. And like, my dad found me passed out in the hallway once. I'd been trying to get to mycophenolate, which is like a really strong painkiller, and the pain was so bad I just blacked out. And he had to go get it for me because I couldn't really feel my legs anymore. Periods can be very, very painful, and not just because of dysmenorrhea, which is what I have, but because of things like endometriosis, PCOS, fibroids. There are all sorts of conditions which can affect your reproductive system. And in fact, that's one of my biggest personal fears, is if I had one of those. I have had tests, by the way, I have been tested, I'm alright. If I did develop one of those in the future, that it would impact my chances of having children. And I often wonder, would I be able to get through that? Because for me, when I was very sick in my early teens as well, and in my late childhood, that's what got me through all that, was thinking, yes, but if you get through this, you can have children. It doesn't affect your reproductive system. So if something did affect my reproductive system, I would be quite worried about how that would affect me, my mental state, you know. I think it would hit me hard to do that, but fingers crossed it doesn't, and as of right now, I'm alright. But also there are things you can do with those conditions diet-wise, and I am quite careful with my diet anyway, so, you know, it wouldn't necessarily be the end of the world. So that is like the emotional side of things, but that is what I've been thinking about a lot, is how it affected me in terms of thinking about having children when I first got my period as opposed to now later on. And it really is quite staggering to me, the difference that it has had. So physically, it has been a difference because I sometimes have to plan things around my period. I can't promise to go somewhere for an event or whatever on the first day of my period, because I know I'm going to be in too much pain usually, or even if I can manage it, the meds I have to take to manage that pain will make me a bit dizzy and a bit nauseous, possibly. Might be okay, but who knows, it kind of depends at the moment. So there's many contributing factors to it. So it's a bit of a pain when it comes to like holidays and stuff, and dance competitions, you know, all that sort of things. But other than that, no, it doesn't really affect me anymore, which is quite interesting how things have changed. But overall, generally for me, getting my period was a very positive experience, because I had known about periods my whole life. I mean, when I was 3, I used to wander into the bathroom when my mother was on the toilet. As I think any of you that are mothers out there with young children will understand, that children have no concept of privacy. We just go into the bathroom when you're in there. And I would see her taking out a tampon, and I would ask what that was, and my mum would always give me an honest answer, tell me it's period, it happens to women, yada yada yada. So I always knew in my mind that that was going to happen to me. So it wasn't a scary thing when it happened. I always knew about it, which is why I'm so keen to promote the like body positivity to you guys, also education about your period, so you know what it is when you get it. It's not a scary thing, because you know what, it is just a bit of blood and it happens each month. Can be quite heavy, and my first period was certainly heavy, as I've talked about my actual first period experience before in a different video, so you want to go and see that, then you can find that one. But in terms of the period itself, it is just a bit of blood. You don't have to freak out when it happens. Put a pad on, use a tampon, a menstrual cup, whatever you're most comfortable with, and you will soon figure out how to manage it. It doesn't take very much. I think it can be quite a scary thing, the idea of getting your first period, but if you understand it really well and you know what it is, it can definitely make a huge difference and make the experience a lot more pleasant. It certainly was for me, and it wasn't scary, which is what I really aim to pass on to you guys through my videos. So thank you so much for watching, guys. If you've got any videos you'd like me to make, please leave them down below. Please subscribe. Don't forget you can get menstrual cups and cloth pads from my website, Precious Stars, down below, and I will see you next week. Bye.